Hello and good evening and welcome along to the latest episode of Leeds United Latest. As you can see on our thumbnail, on our title, why is it so quiet? And literally the minute I've pressed go live on the video, it has been announced by David Ornstein, I believe, that Leeds United have reached an agreement in principle with Newcastle to sign Sean Longstaff. So after that kind of long drawn out transfer saga, it does look as if Leeds United have added it. So it does add a little bit of a new dimension, and I think a much welcomed added dimension after what's been a very quiet few days. I'm Stephen Brown, joining me as ever to discuss everything with the Whites. It is my right-hand man, it is Jason Booker. Good evening, Jason. Guys, if you watch along live, please do smash a like on the video. Get your comments in. What do you think, Sean Longstaff? It looks like it's going to go ahead. And Jason, I mean, I've been dying to get on tonight because I feel like, it's been an exceptionally quiet few days in the world of Leeds United. So we signed Goodmanson, I think, last Monday. We talked about it last Tuesday, and pretty much nothing had happened since. And obviously the anxiety levels grow. As you can see, as we've put in the title, 5 weeks until that Everton game. I don't know how it's getting that close. It seems ridiculous. And it didn't seem like much was happening. A lot of work to do. There was a Graham Smith article that hit yesterday that I think put the cat amongst the pigeons. Indeed, lots of things to talk about that, to do with that. But we have got Sean Longstaff in. It looks like, hopefully, I think personal terms had already been agreed weeks ago. I think that had already been sorted out. But Jay, your reaction, Sean Longstaff, it looks as if it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, the timing of it couldn't have been any more mad, could it? The title screen.
I need to get that title changed.
Browney. This has just come through. I think it'll end up being glorified into being an absolute massive signing. I do think it's a really, really good signing. The conversation that we had last week on it hasn't changed. I think he's very experienced. 170 something games. I think it is 7 years worth of Premier League experience at the top and the bottom of the Premier League. If Burnley, Sunderland and a few of the others at the bottom had signed him, I think would have been saying solid signing. He goes straight into the starting lineup. So I'm very, very happy. And I did think it'd get done. I thought it would be one that would get done unless somebody else popped in with a little bit more money and jumped ahead of the queue. That was my kind of worry when it went quiet. So yeah, I think it's a good one, bulks the squad, and it certainly gives real good competition for them boys in the midfield. That said, I don't think it can gloss over what has been a very tricky week for us in terms of then what's gone on elsewhere in the Premier League. Sunderland keep making moves. Brentford. I'm targeting Brentford as being the team that we can replace if we are to stay up. They signed Jordan Henderson today. It's a shrewd move. I do think they're in a bit of a hole though. I don't think it's a signing that will settle the nerves down if there is some at Brentford. He's not a replacement for me for Norgard. I think they're at completely different points in their career, albeit while they're similar in age. So yeah, it's been a bit unnerving, and then the report comes out of which I cast my eye over earlier, seen other content creators talking about it and understanding it, digesting it, and it did feel a little bit like we were being gaslit into it being our fault as fans. It was a little bit odd, in that the point has been made that several other Premier League teams have had drawn out transfer negotiations all the way through the window so far that have then still been completed. And all of a sudden it's the noise that comes from the club or within the media in this area that creates them being a problem around signing these players. It just don't make any sense to me. It makes no sense at all. Now, the only kind of silver lining I have, or saving grace that I have, is that the facts are over what are we now, 2 and a bit years of being with the 49ers, I think I've been saying this in every single window. The summer windows have all looked like this, and then they've all turned into pretty much gold mines of windows where the recruitment has all been perfect. So, or near enough. So, yeah, it's a tough one because I want to kind of keep my cool and relax as well, but we play at the weekend, right? That's right, isn't it? We go Sweden at weekend, and then we're into Germany. And I mean, it's 5 weeks until the season starts. You know, the idea that we've still not really got us ducks in a row with regards to a goalkeeper comes from that article. Bizarre to me. Really, really bizarre. We want a keeper should be the first name on the team sheet. That's why he's number one. Like, that shouldn't be a case where we're going into this pre-season with Emilio Caldalo as the starting number one. So yeah, there's some points I'm worried about for sure.
Yeah, just your immediate reaction on the Longstaff signing. Good, solid signing for me. People seem to think he's coming for bench, not for me. He will be a starter. That's Paul G. Thanks for your comment. Dav, touching on what you mentioned there as well, Jason, don't forget, guys, don't talk about transfers. It complicates things. Yeah,
the idea, Browney, that like, you know, us on YouTube or Twitter or whatever space talking about these signings makes any difference towards whether they get done or not is absolutely mental. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, it was funny because I'd kind of, you know, I mean, if we go back to the weekend, I was kind of, you know, I didn't expect much this weekend. I had a sneaking feeling it was going to be a pretty quiet weekend, and it's kind of bubbling away. But you're looking at how close the games are. You're looking at the massive glaring holes in the side. The fact that before Longstaff, we'd not signed any midfielders, attackers, or a goalkeeper, as you say. It just felt like, what's happening? And then that article dropped yesterday. And like you say, you know, this implication that the noise around the transfer is kind of causing problems. You're like, every transfer has noise. You're in the Premier League now. It's like, you know, yes, we know the 49ers work in silence and everything, but if that's going to put you off a deal or make things harder, I just don't know what world you exist in. I mean, that's all the football world is at the moment. It's transfers and rumours and people doing things. It just didn't seem to make sense. And, you know, there were some worrying, you know, things in that article, you know, some really worrying things. The fact that, you know, we're in that training camp in Germany, you know, next week, and Farker had mentioned before wanting, you know, a lot of new signings integrated for that. In my mind, there's 2 starters being signed, Longstaff. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in. Is he going to be a starter, or you know, what's going to happen? You know, and it's going to be really interesting. You know, there's still issues. I mean, you know, he mentioned as well, Graham, about the PSR situation as well, and you know, we're just in a different ball game to Sunderland because Sunderland have barely spent anything for years. They've got this kind of blank sheet where they can throw money at it. And, you know, you look at those deals Leeds did last time in the Premier League, big fees, Brendan Aronson, Dan James, Rodrigo, you know, we threw some money about that's really kind of hampered us, because then obviously you go into the Championship, you have to pay big wages to guarantee being competitive. You know, we don't have saleable assets either, Jason. We just don't. I mean, you look at last year, you know, we sold some, you know, our best assets, really, our prized assets, you know, Somerville, Rutter, Gray, getting big fees for all of them. We haven't got anything like that this summer. I mean, it feels like at this moment in time, we'll be lucky to get like 5 million in for your Greenwoods and your Gellarts and all that. Verber's gone on a loan, obviously. You're looking around the rest of them going, who else? I mean, Matteo Joseph, I mean, there was a bonkers fee mentioned for him as a rumour, about 20 million or something. I'm like, wow, I'd bite your arm off for that. Yeah. But, you know, it is this PSR problem. We knew we were going to be a bit hamstrung by it. And I felt like that article yesterday it's almost like being briefed by the club to get that kind of out there as well. The fact that, you know, look, we haven't got that freedom that Sunderland have got. I mean, you know, Jesus, Granit Xhaka they've been linked with. You know, the guy from Serie A, I forget his name. I'm not really familiar with him, but the way people are reacting to it, you know, people like Andrea Russo and things, people we trusted sources saying he's an amazing player. If Sunderland get that, and that's a defender, you know, it's led to this position where, you know, coming into this week, I wanted action. I wanted Leeds to give me something here, because it's concerning, because it's the Premier League. You know, we're not going to get away with it. We're not going to get away with it. But thankfully, Longstaff has come in.
Save you.
Yeah, thank God. But, you know, it is only Longstaff. It's not someone we're going to get very excited about. It's not a winger. It's not a striker. You know, it's not someone who's going to get the you know, set the heart racing. I mean, Jason, there's a lot for us to do. Are you confident this is going to be put in place? I totally get your point, by the way, about previous windows and the 49ers. And I agree wholeheartedly. But I just feel like it's a different beast, the Premier League, trying to recruit for it.
It definitely is. And the margin for error is so much smaller because the gap up to just to be competitive in the Premier League is so much bigger. So, and I do believe right now there's an argument to say that we're probably the 19th best team in the division. And that might give me some absolute pelters in the chat, but I would argue that Sunderland's recruitment so far into some of the young talent that they've got, it might put them above us as it stands right this second.
I agree.
I just look at the dynamism between the boxes, some of the players that they already had there. I think have they added a keeper? Because I think the keeper's a bit of an issue as well. I know
they were after the Chelsea one, weren't they?
Yeah, he's gone to Bournemouth, hasn't he?
Bournemouth, yeah.
And I think Burnley are finding the situation still very similar to us. They've had Kyle Walker, but aside from that, they've been kind of hamstrung by what they agreed to do with regards to the loan clauses. So it's put them in a bit of a position as well. I'd still argue that we're above them. And I've just seen Paul's comment there about Sunderland's defence. I think that's a fair point. And they've definitely still got some gaps, but they've also added some real quality. Quality in which we wanted and quality in which, was rumoured to be available to or drawing attention for teams further up the establishment within the top divisions, So I can totally understand why there's some fear and panic setting in. And I do think we need to show an element of patience. I can understand not wanting to be ripped off. I do think that the fees for Noah Siddiqui and Diarra were probably both a little bit over the mark, especially Diarra. I think the step up from 23 to 35 million is insane. But if they are the players that you've identified as a club that you think is going to make the difference in staying up, then it's worth it. So it's a really, really tricky one because then, you throw in PSR and the situation that comes with that. I've seen Gav mention about the difficulty of moving players on, and you've hit the nail on the head, Brownie, in that, we don't have the sellable assets that we had 12 months ago. Even though that team missed out on promotion and this one got promoted, this team was far more about the sum of its parts. Whereas that team last season had the dynamic differences in the Jorginho Rutters and your Chris Somervilles. We've not really got many of them. And the ones that we have got, I look at Dan James as an example. Teams are not going to be spending 35 million on Dan James. They're not. I look at, the other potential sellable assets. Altanaka is a risk at top level. That's why he didn't go to the top level in the first place. We'll see this season whether he's got the capabilities to do that. I think Ethan Ampadu would probably be another one, but then, he struggled at top level. He's going to have to prove himself as well. And then, as a Leeds ownership, you don't look at selling Ethan Ampadu. What would that do to the way that the club look? He's selling your captain upon promotion. And who do you sell him to? Who's really going to actually step up and then buy him for that? So it leaves us in a real tricky position. I think we've probably got Pascal Struijk who would go for around 10 million. Do you then risk selling him for that? I probably would, but it don't leave you in a great position for them. Because how do you then replace him if he's going to sit as the third or fourth choice centre back, which it looks like he's probably going to do? How do you replace him for that? It's really, really tricky. Mateo Joseph, Willie Nonto, maybe, but
you're not getting big fees, though, are you? You're not.
No. So it's a real difficult one for us because again, us as fans, we just sit here working off the information that we get given, and the information that we got given was that we had X amount of money to spend. At the moment, it doesn't look like that. Maybe time will change that,
Yeah, it does. It feels like a slightly different picture emerging. Thanks for your comments, guys, as well. We're going to go through them all in a minute. Get your likes on as well. Spread the conversation too. The recruitment team as well. I mean, we talk about the 49ers records, but it is a different, there's different players in this recruitment team. I mean, one aspect to the article as well was about the goalkeeper situation, the fact that there seems to be different opinions about the goalkeeper target. And, it's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it? You just think, look, we can't really dilly-dally with this. You know, other teams are going to get other targets. You know, you wonder how that chemistry is working because, you know, let's, you know, look at Adam Underwood. You know, it's an internal promotion he's got. To get a Premier League window with so much pressure on it, I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to be in that role myself. I wouldn't swap positions with him because that's a lot of pressure to get right. And they will have known that, obviously. I think it was one of those things I remember us even kind of hinting at that before when we found out that Nick Hammond was moving on. And it was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser because I would have felt happier if Hammond would have seen this one through and then go, rather than going in the preceding couple of months before the end of the season. So that chemistry is going to be different, isn't it? You know, it's different decision makers. So it's not going to be just copy and paste from what we had the last 2 summers. We know how influential Hammond was in getting deals like Ampadu done, for example. How much of a concern is that to you, the fact that it is different players in this role and you know, for example, you know, the goalkeeper situation where there seems to be this kind of disagreement or whatever?
I'm never a massive fan of too many people being in charge of a specific decision. I think ultimately the buck stops with the manager. It's his team. I think if the data leads a set of players to be available for him and he says, yeah, he's my first, he's my second, then my third, you go with the manager. Because I think otherwise you have too many internal disruptions where then either the manager gets left with the player that they didn't want, or you have the flip situation where the manager then feels undermined because the player that he wanted to, the club don't agree with it. So it's a real tricky one. And I'm not educated enough within that specific sector of exactly how it will work, but that's pretty much from the outside how it looks. I think having disagreements at this stage of the window with regards to a goalkeeper target is absolutely mental. If that is the case, I think that's absolutely bizarre. You know, again, you'd have thought that would have been well down the line of the situation with that, unless, you know, we're now on choice 8 or 9 and we're starting to think actually Elland Road and Caldalo are better. It's a bizarre one. It's a real bizarre one. I think. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think added into that is the fact that, and it's a daft thing, it's not, you know, you can't read too much into it, but, you know, like when you get the training videos and Instagram posts and it's of Elland Road and you're like, guys shouldn't even be at the club still. Please don't even, you know, don't kind of, you know, feed that into us. We just, you know, surely, you know, not, and you start to doubt it. You start to think, God, are they trying to rehabilitate him into the squad? I mean, it does seem bizarre that you would even do that, really, considering where his reputation is. But I've never been fully convinced that there is that big drive to get Meslier sold. I just don't believe there is. And I think if they could find a way to have him in the squad, not start, but if they could find a way to still keep him, I wouldn't be too surprised if that's what ends up happening.
The thing is, the recruitment situation is so difficult. I mean, we don't also want the club just flying transfers in left, right, and centre, because then we'd be saying the complete opposite. You know, they have to get the recruitment right. I have always maintained, forget whether Daniel Farke can do it or not. The recruitment will be the difference in what makes us stay up or not, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, and the deals that we've made so far, I'm hoping are all just going to pop off and it's from day one, it's going to be exactly what we need to do to stay in the Premier League. But the reality of how it looks at the moment is it wouldn't be enough. The situation, I think, with Elland Road is his value is at such a bottom right now. I don't think anybody wants him for a fee. And we've got on our hands a 20, I don't even know how old he is now, 24, 25-year-old goalkeeper that's worth less than nothing, who was a few years ago worth X amount. So what do you do? What do you do with him? And he's only got a year left on his deal. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him stay and leave on a free next year. It wouldn't surprise me at all. That just doesn't mean then that he should be our number one keeper. But then the problem that you've got as a recently promoted team, you're going to end up with 4 goalkeepers on your books.
Yeah.
Well, then what do you do? You know, these things are all things that are attached to. We're still living basically on the mismanagement of previous ownership. Patrick Bamford, I've had as much fun about being equally excited at him being buffed up in the gym as you have. And I hope he has a great season, but the logic would tell us that he probably won't be able to do it. His body will break down and he'll end up being a waste of money. But we can't even give him away because he's on 70 grand a week now again. Who's going to take him? Who's going to pay his contract? Either we left with just paying him up full, which, what is that? 5 million, 6 million quid, something like that over the year or whatever, maybe more. Or do we just keep him as a squad player? But then because we keep him as a squad player, we can't afford to recruit somebody in his position, potentially. Or we have to give up something somewhere else. So it leaves all these kind of problems that as fans, we don't really stop to think about. We just be like, why have we not signed somebody in that position?
Sounds like a massive headache. It just sounds like it must just be like hell trying to balance that up. I mean, it really must. And this PSR thing, because if it was just right, all chips on the table, if you can afford it, you can go get it. I mean, it'd be a different story. It really would be a completely different story, I'm sure. Right, let's get to some of your comments then. Skip, understand we still have 6 weeks left in the window, but it's so frustrating that we haven't got in a goalkeeper number 9, number 10/A, and we've known all season we need these players in.
I wonder on that whether the 49ers are running a similar approach to see who comes up later in the window, and because more attractive targets come up if the same position that we were in last summer as an example, where we left it late because the players that we really wanted Premier League moves, but then when there were no Premier League moves available, they come down to the Championship. Are we now shopping in a market where it's players that want to be in the top 10 of the Premier League, they then have to step down, and we're then looking at them? The Manor Solomon situation. Manor Solomon's probably wanting to play for Spurs, who are going to be hopefully for them competing for the top 10 European places. If he's not then part of the plans come later in the window, he then would be prepared to step down. It's a real difficult one because, again, I want the best players available for Leeds United, but I am also a big believer in that they need to be integrated in, they need to be ready for the season. We need them in as early as possible to then be part of the way that we play. So this battle is forever kind of going, isn't it? But what I will say is that we've shown ourselves to be shrewd movers in this window so far. I would say every single deal that we've announced, including Longstaff, for the reported kind of fees, the good value for money. We've really played the market as well as we possibly could have done for all of them. And we have identified and hit some of the positions that we really needed to improve on. Centre-back being one of them. Left-back, we obviously needed one immediately. So, there is reasons to be optimistic, but similarly, there is reasons to be a little bit nervy as well. I definitely think we're in a bit of a situation with the goalkeeper and the 9. I don't think we get a 10. I'm now absolutely convinced that we don't.
Yeah, it seems to be kind of heading in that direction, doesn't it? LUFC, so why say you've got up to 100 million to spend? Is it all PR? Well, this I don't think we've actually ever had a clear picture of the financial situation. I think it's been a lot of guesswork. I think people have been looking at, you're allowed to make 70 million pound losses in the Premier League, but we had the highest wage bill in the Championship. But then we did the share thing where we made 120 million available out of that. The Red Bull deal was meant to be getting pumped up, but then, Graham's article yesterday is saying, that they need a sale. I mean, it's all over the shop. I don't think there's a clear picture at all of the PSR thing. I think it's really, really tricky. We don't know. We could, in 2 weeks' time, they could have pulled, 35 million for Muniz or something. It could be, anything like that could happen. We don't know. But at this point, it looks a little bit tricky, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I still do believe there'll be one or two pretty nice, tasty signings. I think it's probably more a case of they are waiting for the right move to come across and they don't want to rush it. The concern with that comes is that we are shopping in a different market. And if we snooze, we won't then be able to acquire the quality that it requires to stay up. That's the difference. In the Championship, as I said earlier, the margin for error in recruitment is a bit bigger. You know, you can afford to have somebody maybe, you know, show up with an 8 or a 9 2 weeks in a row, and then the next 2 weeks they're at a 6. In the Premier League, you can't do that because you're going to get relegated. So yeah, it's a really, really tricky one. I'm not sure about the financial side of things. You know, as fans, again, we get filtered down information that people want us to see. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure whether that is actually the reality.
Yeah, indeed. Gav, I agree with you 100% on this one. Gellart on big wages biting us on the bum. I mean, Gellart got a massive 5-year contract. I mean, it's just, you know, it's kind of staggering at the time, because when did he get that contract? Was that when we stayed up in the Premier League after Rafinha? We stayed up with Rafinha, and then didn't Gellart get the 5-year contract then?
I think it was the end of...
At that point, I mean, he probably had less than 10 appearances for us. We've given him a big, fat, cushy 5-year contract. Look, I don't think anyone at the time was complaining, but the lack of foresight, because now Gellart is a problem. I don't know what you do with Gellart. I don't know who's going to pay those wages. A loan might come in, but really we need him off the books, you know. And I love Joffrey as a player, you know, of what I thought he was going to become. But, you know, you see him again on the training videos, and Greenwood, and you're just like, we've got to get rid of these guys. We've got to get them off the books. But if nobody wants them, if nobody's willing to pay for them, what can you do? I mean, Greenwood, for God's sake. I mean, he's had 2 loans, Middlesbrough, Preston. He's not pulled up trees anywhere. They've not helped themselves either, have they, really?
I think, you know, that, again, it's the dangers of the mismanagement of the past board, isn't it? You know, not looking properly at what they had in front of them. The players, ultimately, they work their way into a position and they get a contract put in front of them. They're not going to turn it down, are they? They're going to take it. And, you know, it's generational wealth for some of these, especially for Gellart. Like, he's got a situation in his hands where he's probably financially set now already, if he's looking after his money. So I think they're both championship players, both, you know, middle of the road championship players right now. I think Joffrey, if he gets his position in place, has probably got the ability to kick on and maybe, you know, climb back up the ladder of the league. It may be even into a Premier League player later on into his career. Sam's got loads of technical abilities, but he just can't seem to put it together consistently for a long period of time. There's a reason that neither Preston or Middlesbrough have taken up £1.5 million optional fees. You know, it's nothing really, is it? It's peanuts. So it's a really, really tricky one with players like that. But we've got them through the squad, and this isn't a new thing either. We've had this for a while. You know, we've seen the Orta and Rad's management do this to us before. I think of the likes of Helder Costa. You know, Helder Costa was out on loan at Valencia, then went out on loan to Qatar. Then we ended up having to cut his contract up, and
can't get a fee.
We couldn't even get a fee for a player that we'd paid 15 million for. You know, only 2 years before. And like I said, we've seen this time and time again. We Leeds and that board are notorious for probably the worst transfer ever in John Kevin Augustine. You know, like, this is the same board that did that deal. You know, we'd lost Junior Firpo on a free transfer. And I know part of that will have been the 49ers, but it were still down to the previous board and the way that was all structured. And yeah, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one because all of them are lost assets.
Yeah, absolutely. Nige D here. I just hope that the YEP article was smoke and mirrors from the 49ers. Mark here. Joffrey will be world-class striker if he could just learn to take his first chance. He hesitates until the chance has gone pity. Do you know, I remember though with Joffrey, you know, he got that big fat contract and obviously we got relegated. We saw him. We went to that Shrewsbury game or whatever it was in the Cup, and he was terrible. And he was terrible against Middlesbrough last season in the Cup. And you know, when you give a player that young who hasn't proved himself so much money, and you know, you just wonder what it does to that killer instinct, don't you?
I mean, he did all right at Hull. To be fair to him, they really liked him over there. You know, he ended up being part of the team that kept them up. I know he scored some important goals. For me, it would never be a world-class striker, whether he could take that first chance or not. He's too slow. He's too soft. He's too small. I don't think he really knows his position. I think he's got some really desirable assets, but right now I think he's a bottom end to maybe mid-table championship player that still needs to hone his craft and find his position. It probably came a little bit too soon for him, if hindsight serves us now. But yeah, I've said this to you for as long as we've been chatting about Joffe. His position is the problem. Where do you play him? Do you play him in off the right? Do you play him at the 10? Is he a 9? I think if he plays up front, it has to be a second striker. I don't think he's got the capabilities and the physical attributes to play up there on his own. And that tends to be what ends up happening with him. And he just can't do it. So, No.
All this, though, leads me on to something I wanted to have a chat with you about. And this is Daniel Farke. Because my concern is if we're still going down to them final few days of the window, trying to put a squad together, and the season's already started, and if we're a little bit all over the place in personnel, like we have done under the last 2 seasons under Farke, and we haven't started great in either season.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens again in the Premier League, how many games does he get? But in my opinion, he'll be harshly done by because he's not had, the full toolkit to work with. So, even from that kind of point of view, can we get a proper reading on that? Because it's going to be a tough start. Every game's going to be tough in the Premier League. But if we're still, I remember when we played Middlesbrough last season in the Cup. At that stage, it was late August. We got smashed to bits 3-0. We were absolutely terrible. We just sold, I think, Gray and I think Somerville, and Rutter was a couple of days away from joining Brighton, and the squad was a mess and it needed tinkering with. If we're in that kind of state in kind of late August, we lose the opening 3 games. I mean, is Farke going to get a fair crack at this? And I don't know, it just feels like if we're going to that last few days of the window and we're trying to get a deal here or a deal there, I remember with Marsh, when we let James go at the last day of the window and then got none to win at about 4 a.m. And, it's very haphazard and very kind of slapdash. I almost kind of have sympathy. Well, I do have sympathy with Farke in that position because, it's almost like not getting a fair crack at it in a way. Is that fair?
I think he will always be the scapegoat. The manager usually is, right? And it'll be an easy axe to fall on for the 49ers should the recruitment not be what we need it to be. I personally don't think I'll see anything this season that will distinctly tell us whether it's down to Farke or not. I will always, I think, unless there's some serious difference between now and the end of the window, blame the recruitment if we end up slipping up. Because the team right now and the way that the trend of the window is going, I would then say they've identified the wrong players and got it wrong. I'm sure there'll be stuff within games that, we all say that Farke could do better, but I don't believe that at the moment we can say that that's the case.
Yeah.
Would you say the same?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that's my concept because I think we know Farke's going to be on a very short leash going into this season. What 6 to 10 games to kind of prove himself. In a way. Don't forget there were a lot of kind of rumours about us actually, chopping him at the end of last season. Now, how much of that was true, we don't know. So yeah, I just think it'll be. I think it's kind of frustrating if more of the pieces of the puzzle are not in place for that Everton game, and I am surprised that we haven't done more by the 15th of July. I mean, you said, and I agreed that first couple of weeks in July we're going to be insane.
Yeah, I really did think that.
It just hasn't been that way. And I understand, the PSR thing. It hamstrings clubs. I think that's absolutely true. Is it the window you expected in terms of excitement levels, or? I mean, I'll just tell you what I pictured coming into this summer. I just thought it was going to be such an exciting window, and it was going to be exciting signings coming in and a real feel like we're giving it a really good go. And I've got to be completely honest, it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like a bit of a grind in a way, in the terms of these long gaps where nothing seems to be happening, nothing seems to be moving, and the frustration seems to build. It's a different, I think, window than what I expected. The highest I've been in this window is when we signed Bijol. That felt like a genuine, we're uplifting the team here. We're really kind of,
it's felt pragmatic so far. That's the word that I would put to it. Might not be a bad thing, but I tend to agree with you in that I thought there would be a couple of real statement signings off the rip. I thought we would have signed an exciting 10 and an exciting 9 for 25, 30 million. Not that the transfer fee dictates whether a player is going to be good or not, but it does say that they've got a value attached to them that clubs seek, and there is something that comes with that as a fan to be excited about. And only time will tell whether we go in the right direction about it. And like I said, there's still plenty of time for us to make them signings, but usually them signings that cost 25, 30 million come through early because they're worth the value that they're worth, and you have to pay what you have to pay, because otherwise, if you don't, somebody else is going to. Does that make sense? I understood the recruitment policy in the Championship in that sometimes certain players will become available later into the window because of the Premier League to Championship dynamic. I don't feel like we're in that same mould now. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel about it. I'm underwhelmed overall. I really like Bijol as a signing. I really like Gudmundsson as a signing. I like the value of every signing that we've made. I think that it makes smart recruitment, but it's just missing a little bit of an X factor. But maybe, I spent 5 minutes earlier talking about the fact that we had a team more than some of its parts this season in comparison to a team that had the X factor the year before, and one of them got us promoted and one of them didn't. Maybe that's the route that we're going down, and maybe that is what actually will see us stay up. There's been plenty of Premier League teams that have survived by being a unit rather than having an X factor rated player to try and carry it up. Premier League, it probably wouldn't do that, to be fair. That there is an argument to say that is actually the case. So it's tough because as a fan, you just sat here wanting excitement and excited and wanting, the best X-rated X Factor kind of look that you can get. And especially when Sunderland are making the moves that they do, it kind of can neg you out a bit, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at some of your comments, and thanks for all your comments, guys, and make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. White's forever. It's been reported by Romano and Ornstein that it's a done deal for Longstaff with a medical in the next 48 hours. UFC Fak came out with a statement saying he wanted players in by the 7th, not gone to plan. Mark, I enjoyed the Championship, watching us win games. I will miss that, to be fair. Yeah, we're not going to be winning 30 games again this season, are we? Absolutely not. Nige, is Melia going to be reintroduced to the team starting Saturday? Really hope not. And Nige again, no new goalkeeper in yet is worrying. Gavin, also kind of echoing that as well. Keeper position so vital for us.
They can't trust Melia again. They can't. I mean, it popped up on YouTube for me. I think it was yesterday. The Chelsea 3-0 at the beginning of the relegation season. He had a great game, and I was thinking, where's that Elland gone? But they can't. Like, this has been 3 years of systematic, drop off from a keeper to the point where he was a hindrance for a team that faced no shots. The only time that he didn't concede was when the opponents didn't have a shot on target. And when you then, hoping to survive relegation, you need somebody with supreme confidence within them sticks. It is arguably, actually, I don't know if it even is something that people could argue. I would say it's the most important position in our team next season.
Yeah.
It is absolute essential position. Don't want Ramsdale. I've made my points really clear on him. I don't think he's a solution at all. I think a real assured member between them sticks is absolutely vital. Vital.
Yeah. It's a huge, because you just can't have someone in net in the Premier League who's gonna, make errors, switch off, not save basic shots. If you couldn't do it in the Championship, like you say, against in a team that faced no shots, I mean, it's unbelievable. We've said time and time again, if we'd have had even a half decent goalkeeper, we'd have probably broken the points total. Diggler here, looks like maybe the 49ers are not wanting to back Farker, maybe. I mean, they wanted him out at the end of last season, if the rumours to believe. Now, I disagree with that because I think the 49ers will be trying everything to make sure Leeds have the best opportunity to stay up. I just think what the problem is it's just not as easy as that, really. And
if they want
a new recruitment team in place, I don't know. It's,
No, I agree with you 100%. And if they wanted to sack him, they'd have sacked him. They'd have absolutely sacked him. I was kind of party to some of the internal communications because we were at Leeds last season. They didn't want to sack him. That wasn't ever the case at all. They had full faith in him, and I think they also, I think they're very cutthroat. And I think we'll see that should we not perform at the beginning of this season. If they'd have really wanted to sack him this summer, they'd have sacked him. I truly believe that. I think the only thing that matters to the 49ers is us staying and maintaining as a Premier League team. That will be absolutely critical for the 49ers to seek the return on the investment that they've put in. So, no, I don't agree with that at all, if I'm honest.
No, absolutely not. As Gavin says here, the right keeper could be the difference between staying up. Nige mentions in the comments as well about Gus Hamer. I mean, obviously that's a name that's been bandied around a while, and obviously Stack is the next one that seems to be building, but it's kind of dropped off a bit with kind of links and everything. But at least Longstaff in now. We've got one in for this week. It's Man United at the weekend in the first pre-season friendly. What are you hoping to see in that game? What are you I mean, it's going to be hard to get a read on it, isn't it, really? Because half that team playing in that game probably might not be starting against Everton.
Yeah, I mean, are even any of the signers? I think Metch is there, but I think a lot of the boys are still probably away. I think there's, some extended holidays. I don't know what to expect, if I'm honest. Be competitive. Thankfully, there's not been too much time for them to improve that much. They're terrible. So, I just think Gav's comment about Anana. I mean, the Turkish lad's not much better, is he? The lad that kind of came in, they were both doing the best to throw as many goals in as they possibly could at the end of last season. So, I think they're in a really funny position. No doubt they'll probably turn up and stuff us 3-0, knowing our kind of reputation against them. Always seems like we guarantee them some points. I'm hoping that's going to be different this season.
Yeah, please, we've got to stop that.
But yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to expect from the weekend. It's probably an opportunity for a couple of them to advertise themselves as fit and ready. Hopefully, some of the players that may stay around. I think of like Schmidt. I think of Gruev. Maybe they could stake a claim and really push some of the players on. And then maybe the likes of Gellart and Greenwood, if they do make appearances, they can put themselves in the shop window for a Championship club to come and say, you know what, we'll pay 50% of Gellart's wages. Or we'll pay this for Greenwood or whatever, however that might look, and then we might be able to move a couple of them on. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see from a selection point of view, if everybody's available, who starts at centre-back. I'm really interested to see that, because I do think that that's a dynamic that we've got within the squad that's going to be interesting. We've got 4 first-team, first-choice centre-backs. And who's going to be the 4th choice? So that's going to be an interesting one. Who starts up front? Will it be Metcha? Will it be Pirro? Will it be Pat? Has Pat now secured another run at Premier League renaissance? It's going to be an interesting one to see. So there's a few questions to answer. but I think it'll leave us with more questions than answers, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Did you see Peru win the bleep test, by the way?
I'm Sam.
Like, I tell you what, Peru were looking trim, you know.
Yeah.
Peru was looking sharp, and there was a bit of a debate online rumbling about Peru. Some kind of people saying, maybe he'll be able to do something in the Premier League, and then others saying he's nowhere near good enough. Just a complete gut feeling based on not much. I feel like he might be one of those that can step up. I'm not saying I want him to be that guy starting against Everton or, going into September when the window's closed. That I want him to be the guy starting week in, week out. But I think we bought a player there at a really good age who could improve. He's technically good enough, finishing, not the most mobile or whatever, but look, he won the bleep test, so he must, he's got some shift in him.
He's also got some desire in him as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
that is what that would say. He's got this position now where he is now a Premier League player, Premier League striker, and he's got the opportunity to stake his claim and really make his mark. I think there's been a reason why no Premier League club took him last season. The season we signed him, and he ended up coming to the top of the Championship instead of having that move straight to the Premier League, and we've probably seen some of them reasons. I think he can step up, and I think a goal return of 7 to 10 would be a really, really successful season for Joe Perreault. I think he'll end up playing some of the season at 10, or as a second striker if we don't play a 10 as such. I think he'll have a really important role to play. I think that kind of player's goals and him being clinical could be a small difference in us staying up and going down.
Yeah.
Not to the degree of a goalkeeper being important, but we are going to need somebody to be clinical in front of goal. Metcha's not that player. We know Pat's not that player, not in front of a full crowd in the Premier League anyway. So, yeah, he has got a huge part to play. Huge part to play.
Yeah. As UFC says, just look at Chris Wood when we first got him and he got better over time. Yeah, he's absolutely the example I would use.
Some players are better in the Premier League as well. Some players do suit the pace of the way that the game is played. His intelligence will probably end up setting him up for more opportunities than against some of the way that the defenders play in the Premier League, a bit higher up than the low blocks of some of the defenders that we're dealing with in the Championship. So I do think there's some arguments to be made that he might actually look even better at the Premier League, but only time will tell.
Yeah. What about Large Ramazani, Jason, who I think the club like to use a lot on the social medias because he's got that larger-than-life personality, doesn't he? He's got a big smile and messing about. Him and Nonto have quite a good little relationship going on. Yeah. Is he a starting winger next season, do you think? Or what? I mean, how do you view that? I mean, it'd be interesting if he was because he didn't start very often in the Championship. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've seen some people say, he should have started ahead of Solomon the whole time. I'm like, we won the league. Do you know who won us the league? Last game of the season. Last 5 minutes. Jesus.
It still blows my mind, this conversation with regards to Solomon. I can't believe some of them still want to even go at it. It blows my mind. Yeah. Based on what we've seen, we've seen potential, but we've seen nothing more than potential. A couple of moments here and there against Championship defenders doesn't do enough for me. Manor Solomon ended up being the crown, didn't it? The gem within the crown, if you like, however you want to put it. Yeah. The jewel. That's what I was looking for. The jewel within the crown. Yeah. We are going to miss that. I still really think we need an X factor player to come within this squad. As much as I do like the sum of its parts kind of feel to the team, I want to see somebody that has got the capabilities in them attacking areas of really grabbing the game by a scruff of its neck. And at the moment, we don't have that. We had that with Solomon last season. The season before, we had it with Rutter and Somerville. So I think, if they start the season and he can take the ball by the horns and shows that, fine. Same for Nonto. I think the same applies for Nonto as well. I don't think Nonto had a great season last season. I really don't. I think he had an okay season, but it was overshadowed by Dan James on the right and Solomon on the left. So yeah, I still think I am pretty sure it'll be a position that we still acquire somebody in. I don't know exactly how that will look as of yet, but I do think it'll be a position that we still look to sign. So whether he starts at the beginning of the season or not, I don't think he'll end up being the first choice.
No.
Left winger.
And as Gav says here, a big season for both Gnonto and Ram. And I agree with you. I don't think Gnonto had a particularly good season last season. Maybe one of those players more suited for the Premier League because he was decent in that Premier League season. Probably one of our better players. We know the goal against Man United and setting up Somerville at Anfield, all that kind of thing. And, for someone like Gnonto, it almost feels like, is it going to be a breakthrough season where, he contributes, Leeds stay up, and then you do get a big sale from him at the end of that season, which would be nice because it feels like that's where that was heading previously. And it's kind of tailed off a little bit. So he needs to kind of have a good season, I think, Gnonto, and it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work going forward.
It's worth mentioning as well with that the 49ers have invested a lot of money in Willie Gnonto indirectly in rejecting the offers from Everton. We could have had 25 or 30 million quid for Gnonto and we turned it down. So that's as good as spending the money on him, innit, if you think about it. So I can see that, and I can see them really wanting to back him as a Premier League player. I think he's got the potential. I think people forget how young he is. He's still extremely young, but we do need to start seeing more consistent output from that potential if he's going to turn into an out-and-out Premier League player. Same goes for Ramazani. People want to ignore the fact that Ramazani got his chance back in the team and flopped. He didn't play very well. He started games and then he came back out of the team because he didn't play well enough. Yeah. So it's as black and white as that for me. Like I said, I've said this before, but Solomon basically got us over the line when we were really looking for somebody. He was the one. When Dan James went off the boil, Gnonto was off the boil, Brendan was struggling, Pirot was still chipping in, but I think Pirot had a fairly decent end to the season. But ultimately, not Ampadu, not some of the other. It was the full backs were pretty much, week in, week out, 8 or 9s, and it was Solomon. And when we needed it most in that last minute to win as a league, it was Solomon. So, you need to start seeing them game-changing moments from these young lads to really state the claims, because otherwise they will get swallowed up and they'll get swallowed up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan James signed a new contract to be expected. We heard mumblings, obviously, that it was all happening, and it is. It's a 4-year contract. It'll take him into his 30s with Leeds. Can't believe Dan James is going to be 30 in a few years. It seems ridiculous. I still feel like Swansea lad who's about 20, bombing down the pitch. But another one of those where we don't quite know how it's going to work out. I know we touched on it last week, but I think a good, sensible, smart option. I think I agree with you in terms of I don't think any club's coming in for Dan James and offering a bucket load of cash. And he's a player where we spent a lot of money on him, and we've got to try and extract as much value for that as possible.
Yeah, I think he gets an hard time, Dan James. I think if Dan James was called Larger Ramazani, I think the fan base would absolutely ooze over him. I know he can be wasteful and he can be a little bit head down sometimes, but I think his game's come on so much over the last 2 seasons. Again, we've spoke about this before, but the treatment that he's had at Leeds is disgusting. I was watching them Chelsea highlights the other day in that 3-0 victory at Elland Road at the beginning of the relegation season. He started up front that day. He started as the 9. And Jesse Marsh subbed him, gave him a big hug, and then a week later, he was on loan at Fulham. He was shipped out the doors if he didn't matter. And, we forget this. And that lad came back after the team got relegated. He was no part of that. He came back and then kicking and screaming over the last 2 seasons has been the player, really, over the last 2 seasons that has been the most consistent. He's upped his game, his assists, his goals have gone through the roof. He was the player in the final at Wembley that tried to take the game by the scruff of the neck, had the best opportunity, ended up leaving the pitch. Well, didn't even leave the pitch. He had the situation on the pitch with a massive gash across his forehead. He put his body on the line, and still played on in that game. And that's what Dan James is about. And he's represented himself so well for Leeds United, and I think people just forget that, they ignore it. And he deserves this contract. He absolutely deserves it. And I think, 25 million, while it is a lot of money, of course it is, in football transfer terms, given the fact that we signed him from them, I think he's probably earned that transfer fee back now. And I think he's into the second stage of his Leeds United career where now hopefully he can establish himself as a Premier League player. I'd love to see him just play a part for Leeds United now over whatever it looks like for the next 6, 7, 8 years till his retirement. I think he's he should have been a Leeds player from day one. He should have been. He's had a bit of a journey with Leeds, hasn't he? So yeah, I love him.
Yeah, I love all that, and I agree 100%. As Gav says here, James been great and a true professional. I think, do you know what? He must be so mentally strong as well, and I think he plays like that as well. He'll scuff one and miss hit across, but then he's doing it again, trying things, trying to make things happen. To come back to the club, when it was relegated to help us, to get us back to battle in those positions. That first year battling against Somerville and Nonto and Rutter, really, tough guys to try and squeeze out in that position. Yeah, I'm delighted for him. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it's that next phase now, isn't it? Where, he's in the prime of his career. And hopefully he has a big say on Leeds United staying in the league.
Technically, he's probably the fourth least technical player out of Nonto, Somerville, Solomon, Ramazani, fifth, if that is fifth. I don't know however many players out of that he's competed with over the last 2 seasons. And I would argue that he's been the best out of all of them.
Yeah.
Even Solomon, I would say he's been more consistent than Solomon. He's been more in the goals and the assists in terms of the contributions, if numbers are your thing. Defensively, up and down the wing, gives it his absolute all. And considering how often he's kicked and wiped out because of his pace and his trickery, he doesn't miss that many games. He missed a few not the season just gone, the season before, but still, even then, you're talking 35 games, something like that. Yeah. I think he's been sensational for us over his championship time, and I think he's a Premier League player. Sure, he's got deficiencies because of the dynamism that he's got, but I think in terms of his end product, Daniel Farke has really coached that out of him, improved it tenfold, I would say. The difference over the last, yes, at championship level, that does need to be remembered, but putting the ball in the back of the net and delivering a cross doesn't really change regardless of the players that you're playing against.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it should really translate then into stepping up into the Premier League. I'm all for him, mate. I'm all about the Dan James hype.
Yeah, absolutely. LUFC, you two, to me, only people on YouTube channel who talk the truth. LUFC, really appreciate that. Thank you. And look, guys, if you do enjoy mine and Jay's Leeds United latest show, please get it shared, get it liked, get it out there, because that is much appreciated. Okay, what else have we got here? Yeah, there was an interesting one, actually, I just wanted to bring up from Tom. Do you think having to rely on Byram as our full backup is a little risky? Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because last week they were saying we wanted another fullback, but is that one of those positions potentially you take a risk and say, let's not eat into the budget, let's kind of, maybe we can fudge through with Byram and Schmidt or whoever else we've got. Maybe we can kind of fudge through and maybe divert some of those funds to the other positions that we need. I don't know. It probably is risky, but it's not going to be perfect, is it?
No, I think look at all Premier League squads. They all have one or two of these players that kind of fill a squad hole, and he's capable. Certainly from a defensive point of view, he is capable of holding his own. He's experienced. He's homegrown. He won't play a lot. He won't. I do believe that there's a real potential that we will play 3 at the back this season. I don't know how often. I don't know if it'll be for periods of games or whether it'll be a main tactic. But given the fact that there's not been a lot of noise around outgoings at centre-back, and we've signed 2 that are both probably going to be expecting to start, I can really picture a world in which we play 3. And that will then leave the potential for the left wing back position. Gudmundsson can do that when he's fit. If he's not fit, I could imagine Schmidt playing there. I could imagine Dan James filling in wing back positions for both Bogle and Gudmundsson. So it gives us other then potential opportunities to fill them roles with different players. So yeah, I don't see Byron playing very much. And I'm glad that he's kept around. Made my point about it when we spoke about it probably about a month or so ago now, and I just think it makes a lot of sense. The fee that you'll be talking in terms of the wages, in terms of Premier League wages, it's peanuts. You're talking 10 grand a week, 7 grand a week, something like that. It'll be next to nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jason, before we wrap it up, Sean Longstaff, he is in the building. We needed something to pick us up a little bit, didn't it? I'm glad it happened just as we were playing the intro as well. We've never had that before, have we? A signing just as we're about to come on. It was great, was that? And maybe we're a good luck charm. I don't know. Yeah,
we're a little bit of a first one. I think we should be cautiously excited about this one. Again, the stigma and the stereotypical kind of thing will happen with fans. It's not that sexy, it's not that exciting because he's English and he's ginger and he's called Longstaff. This is the reality. Like, if we'd have signed a nobody that we'd never have heard of, like a Diarra or a Noah Siddiqui. I mean, most fans have never heard of Noah Siddiqui. Diarra is a little bit more of a main name in that he plays for the Senegal national side, played in one of the top 5 divisions. Nobody had even heard of Noah Siddiqui outside of the football nerds among us. Like, they'd not. But when he ended up being linked with us and then going to Sunderland, it was, oh my God, it's a catastrophe. Like, we lost this player. Like, it does make me laugh. Whereas then we'll turn his nose up at somebody that's played 170 games for a team like Newcastle at the Premier League level. He's at a prime age. He's super experienced. Like, he's a top player. He's a player that all promoted sides would be desperate to get hold of. So I really like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And, on the pitch, some of the stuff that you won't be able to see that'll be kind of, his position, his in-game management, his leadership for some of the younger boys and all the rest of it. Some of this stuff that you won't be able to measure as a fan, you won't be able to see, will be there in absolute bucket spades. So, it's I think it's a really, really smart signing. Really, really smart signing. It'll help us stay up, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that character you're getting off the pitch, I mean, just from what Newcastle fans are saying, what teammates have said, Tonali saying he's the most underrated player he's ever played with. He can look at this as an opportunity. He's not played much for Newcastle in the last 12 months, and their midfield is just, arguably the best in the league. It's an incredible midfield three that they've got, and he was always going to struggle to get into it. He can come here and he can kind of almost reinvent himself, or he can be that leader. He'll get plenty of game time, and he can really help this club establish itself in the Premier League, touch wood. So it's exciting for him as well. He's got a lot of motivation, hopefully, to come here and do the business. I think he's going from one absolutely huge club to another big club that will satisfy that as well, I think.
Yeah. Well, a lot of players that we've seen it over the years can't deal with the Elland Road crowd. They can't deal with the expectation of the team. That's not something that we're going to get from Longstaff. To be able to do it at Newcastle is probably one of the only clubs that's even more demanding than ours. In terms of their fan base and their expectations and some of the stuff that they've gone through over the years. I mean, imagine playing under Steve Bruce and Rafa Benitez when the crowd was hostile and then the change. He was not last season. He didn't play much, but the season before he started 30 games for Eddie Howe. That's a hell of a good going for a club that was pushing in the way that they were with the signings that they were making. So yeah, I think it's, like I say, it's a top signing. Gav's comment, Sean us Longstaffos. Like, he's right though, isn't it? Like, if we'd have signed a player that was 27 from Serie A that was called Seamus Longstaffos and he was Italian, we'd be all like, oh, look at this player. Like, he's played 170 games for Sampdoria or Napoli. Like, he's played 170 games for Napoli. Like, would be buzzing, but because it's called Longstaff and he's ginger, like we just want to turn his nose up. Yeah, just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I would love it. I hope we're sat here in 6 months and it's like what a no-brainer that was, and look how he's contributed. Fingers crossed that'll happen. One more before the end of the week. That'd be nice, wouldn't it, Jess?
Would be nice.
One more. Come on. It's only Tuesday.
It's only Tuesday. You know what? It feels like Friday today. I can't lie. I don't know what my head's going on. I'm all over the place. Yeah, it's only bloody Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, there is actually plenty of time to get another one in, actually. And then it'd be nice to take another one with us to the Sweden game. So, yeah.
One more, please.
We need to start keep on seeing tracks and keeping on, you know. It's not about just appeasing the fans. It's about actually just improving the squad. That's the essential. I don't care what the fans think or not, really. Like from somebody that just cares about the club right now, we just need to improve the team. I really, really hope we see a goalkeeper. Really, really hope we see a guy. Like, I would go as far as to say that, I mean, we need more. I don't want to do this. But if we could only sign one more, it would have to be a goalkeeper.
I agree.
And that would give us an opportunity to stay up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree completely, yeah. Hopefully it'll be more than one more. We don't know. Gav saying possibly Stack next. That'd be nice as well. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
Stack's a great example of this point that we're making, by the way. Like, I like Anton Stack. He's a good player. He's a top player, actually. But I'm a nerd and I know loads about football. Most fans that are talking about Anton Stack have never heard of him before. Yeah. They haven't, Browney. They haven't. Like, you know, so, but we're like, oh, we must get Anton Stack.
Like Chinese whispers, isn't it? So, yeah, it's really good. And then by the time it comes round, it's like, oh, we got to get this guy.
I do think Anton Stack's a better signing than Noah Sadiqa. I think it's probably comparable with Diarra. I think they've both got the credentials to do well in the Premier League. I do think Diarra will do well in the Premier League, by the way. I think it's a good signing for Sunderland.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good stuff. There we go. That's your Leeds United latest episode for this week. It's nice because we come on and I think last week, what had happened last week? Had we signed someone last week? Goodmanson, wasn't it? Goodmanson had signed and came on, and then just as we were playing the intro, Longstaff signs. So maybe we need to do these shows a bit more frequently. Maybe that's...
it's down to us.
Yeah, we'll be back on tomorrow night. But yeah, thank you everybody who contributed live, getting your chats in. Really enjoyed chatting with you all. It's much appreciated for getting involved. If you've not already done so, please like the video. If you're watching this again later as well, please do smash a comment in as well. Get subscribed to the channel. It does mean a hell of a lot to us. But we will be back next week to discuss everything and see what we've done by then. I've been Stephen Brown. With me, as ever, has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.